We speak to our senior correspondent in Seoul, Lim Yun-suk, who's of course closely following developments on the Korean peninsula. Yun-suk, Seoul was reportedly sidelined in this decision by Mr. Trump to call off the summit, even though Mr. Moon had just met Mr. Trump in Washington about a few days ago, about 48 hours. What's been the reaction there?
Well, yes, it seems like President Moon Jae-in had no idea that Mr. Trump was going to cancel this. Some experts here are saying that this is seen as a slap in his face. And so the sentiment here in South Korea, in the streets of Seoul, is not very good. And in fact, I'm just outside the U.S. Embassy right now, and there have been rallies here by various different groups here saying that Mr. Trump should go ahead and have that dialogue. Now, over on one side, they're saying that Mr. Trump should leave and that he should have no business here on the Korean Peninsula. On the other side, we have this people from women from various groups saying that they want peace and not war here in the Korean Peninsula. Now, usually there are riot police outside the U.S. Embassy, but not as many as there are today because there are concerns that there will be more protests and rallies here because many here are saying that they had not expected this. They were looking forward to the dialogue between the United States and North Korea, and they were hoping that this would promote peace here on the Korean Peninsula. Because for months now, as the two sides were engaged in dialogue and North Korea showed this different stance, this different attitude, there were no missile tests and there was no rising tension here on the Korean Peninsula, but many Koreans here are worried that now that the Singapore summit has been canceled, there is this possibility that North Korea may again raise the tension here, and especially with U.S. President Donald Trump saying that the military is ready if necessary.
Well, South Korea's President Moon Jae-in has staked a lot personally and politically on seeing this summit through. What happens now for Mr. Moon?
Well, yes, he has, and I think that is a question that many people here are asking. And I think, personally, for Mr. Moon too, President Moon was the one who really did put the two leaders together. It was his aides who went to Washington saying that North Korea wanted to meet the United States. And so President Moon did put a lot of efforts into this, and it was him who really wanted this engagement policy. He wanted to engage North Korea, hopefully bring out North Korea out of its isolation and be able to sit down with the United States. Many here are saying that, South Korea might have to now rethink about its relations with Washington, although many here are saying, no, it can't afford to do that, because it still has to have this engagement policy going with North Korea, and the United States is right in the middle of that, and it's crucial to promoting peace on the Korean Peninsula. But definitely, experts saying it's a slap in his face, and, I think the South Korean President Moon Jae-in is trying to figure out exactly what went wrong, because like you said, only about 48 hours ago, he was sitting together with U.S. President Donald Trump, and the National Security Advisor Chung Eun-young was telling reporters that South Korea was 99.9% sure that the summit meeting in Singapore was going to go ahead on June the 12th. And so there was a lot of expectations, and right now here in South Korea, lots of disappointment, lots of protests going on, and I think we will be seeing more of this until we see some kind of engagement, some kind of dialogue going on again between the United States and North Korea.
Yun-suk, Mr. Moon himself has to deal with local elections in South Korea in mid-June. Do you see support for him falling off on account of setbacks on the summit?
Well, yes, that is also another concern here. South Koreans will be going to the polls, and really, his approval ratings has shot up after that inter-Korean summit meeting between himself and North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un in April. And many South Koreans here, gave him credit for bringing peace here, at least for the last few months. And so, a lot of Koreans here were saying, although it wasn't peace exactly the way that we wanted it at the moment. They did say that they were unhappy about the economy because Mr. Moon seemed to be focusing too much on North Korea. And so we'll have to see what comes out of that June 13th elections. But right now, many here are saying that it could have an impact, as South Koreans here were hoping that this would go ahead, and that would especially, help the South Korean President Moon Jae-in, but we will have to see how it is going to have an impact and whether it really will have a negative impact on President Moon. And I think the ruling party is also, it came out with a statement saying that it's disappointed with Mr. Trump, that it wants this engagement policy and dialogue with North Korea to continue. And so we'll see, what happens on June the 13th. But right now, the fact that this has been canceled is very bad news for South Korea. And the South Koreans here are saying they're not happy and they want President Moon to start dialogue again with the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un.
Mr. Moon has been able to do what he has done with considerable flexibility on account of the sky-high approval ratings, which you mentioned. Does this setback now somehow reduce his flexibility and perhaps force him politically at home to look to China, to look to North Korea, rather than Washington?
Well, that is an option. And, experts here have been talking about it this morning. Why is it that, he flew all the way to Washington to try and salvage this summit meeting in Singapore, and yet he came back very confident and 99.9% sure that it was going to go ahead. And, the day he arrives, just before midnight, he gets the word that it's been canceled. And we're hearing that, South Korea was not aware of this. And so, yes, definitely, there are talk here saying, is Washington someone that we should trust, especially the fact that the U.S. has said in the past that military option is still out there. And with President Moon saying that if military option is out there and U.S. does take any military action, the United States will have to first consult South Korea. And that has been the stance by the South Korean government of President Moon Jae-in ever since he took office. But right now, many are questioning that. I mean, the fact that Mr. Trump did not consult with him, or at least tell him that he was going to come out with this letter canceling that, what does that mean for South Korea? How sure is South Korea going to be that the United States will consult South Korea before it does take any military action, if it does? And so there are lots of questions being raised here, and there are saying perhaps they should side more with China now that North Korea is more eager to meet with South Korea. We saw that historic meeting between the two Koreas, but still, there are still concerns among many here who say no, but the United States is South Korea's strongest ally. And I think the people here who are demonstrating and rallying do still feel that, South Korea needs the U.S. We have 28,500 U.S. troops stationed here in South Korea. And I think both South Koreans would agree that they need the U.S., the American soldiers here, to help protect South Korea against North Korea. So, we'll have to see, and I'm sure President Moon Jae-in is trying to see different options out there, trying to figure out what his next step is going to be. We have experts saying it's very possible that he may pick up that phone, since there is a hotline now established between South Korea and North Korea. He may pick up that phone, try to talk to North Koreans, maybe perhaps talk again to Mr. Trump, trying to get that dialogue going, but it's going to be tough. And I think, South Korea will have to think about what the next step is very carefully before they do anything.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that, Yoon-suk. That was Channel News Asia's Yoon-suk speaking to us from Seoul from the perspective of what South Korea needs to do now after this setback to the summit.